Hello and welcome. Thank you for tuning in to MDMTG. My name is Levi. Today I'm going to run through a blue-black board control deck that me and my buddy have made specifically for this channel. This is made for Friday Night Magic. It's technically standard, and it will be for next couple months. It's properly titled, I Don't Know Whether to Be Proud or Terrified. And it's based around the Aura card Mere Mockery and a whole bunch of creatures with Enter the Battlefield effects. Creatures such as Priest of the Bloodright, which play that right, you get an army of 5/5 flyers, or Fleshbag Marauder, making them sack all their guys and they have nothing to block your guys with. And the same things with Merciless Executioner. Throw in a Lily and get whatever they sack back with her emblem, if you make it to there. A whole bunch of creatures with Exploit, which you can exploit them once they enter the battlefield and kill themselves, trigger their ability. So, without further ado, I'll get on to the deck list and see how you guys like it. Okay, this is the deck list for I Don't Know Whether to Be Proud or Terrified. Starting with the instance, we have one copy of Anticipate, which just lets you get cards you need. Obviously, Anticipate's a great card. It's 2-drop for blue. Then we got one copy of Dig Through Time, which is amazing. I know you guys think that might be a high CMC for this deck, but actually it levels itself out. There's only one copy of it, but it does allow you, when you draw it, to purpose your deck exactly for the hand that you have planned. So then we have Icy Blast, which allows you to tap their creatures, and is great in this deck, especially once you have Priest of the Bloodright out, and they don't untap next phase. You basically buy yourself a turn on every single creature you target. Next spell is Murderous Cut, which, again, high CMC, but with the Delve, it is definitely doable in this deck. Destroy target creature. I mean, it's a pretty straightforward card. And then we got Negate, which countering non-creature spells. Sorry about that. And we got two of that in here because it is a control deck. It's blue-black, obviously. Then we got Refocus for your untap and draws. Just great card. It's only a 2-mana drop. So we got two of them in there. We got 3 Scatter to the Winds, which is basically the cancel that's better. I mean, late game you can awaken with it. I mean, other than that, it's just counter a target spell. Ultimate Price, which is destroy mono-colored creature. And that is the instance for this deck. For sorceries, we have 2 Ruinous Paths, and that's it. This is basically a simplified or more complex version, I guess, if you think about it, of Hero's Downfall. But with only one exception, it is a sorcery now, so you can only play it on your turn, sorcery speed to boot. But you can awaken it and get a creature, a 4/4 elemental with haste, if you play it late game, which is why we decided to throw this in the deck. Granted, it's black control, it's good in it anyway, but the awakening cost helps. So, enchantments, we only got the 4 Mere Mockery, and obviously this is the crucial part of the deck. You want to draw it, you want to anticipate for it, you want to dig through time, you want this card. Now the odds are you're going to draw it, but you want this card. Without it, the deck seems to fall apart. And then on to the creatures. There are 16 creatures in this deck, 14 instants, 2 sorceries, 4 enchantments, and only 23 lands, and then 1 planeswalker. Yes, we did decide to throw Ugin into this deck because it is blue-black control. It would not be complete without 1 copy of Ugin. So then on to our 16 creatures. We have 3 Fairy Miscreant. I really hope I'm pronouncing that right. That would be very embarrassing if I'm not. Then we got 2 copies of Jace. He is the most expensive card in this deck, unless you're running exhibition lands for Polluted Delta, which would kind of just jack your price up. If you can buy those, you can definitely run Jace. Now, we're only running 2 copies of him, and he's pretty good. He's a 2-drop for a 2/2 with a draw ability. I mean, he's good. Even if you don't get to flip him, he's good. And then we're going to run 2 copies of Lily, Hellcentric Healer. She's a 3-drop but lifelink, and she's one of the easiest planeswalkers to transform. Her emblem is great in this deck with Fleshbag Marauder and Merciless Executioner, because you get control of not only the card you sacrifice, but the card they sacrifice. And then you can just sack them again. So that is win-win. Now, like I said, we have 3 Merciless Executioner in this deck. which he's just when he enters the battlefield, each player sacks a creature. And then we have one Nianto Husk. I believe I'm pronouncing that right. If not, I'm sorry. And his ability, just sack a creature. He gets +2/+2. This is great for just mirroring stuff. Swing with him, sack the copy after you trigger its ETB effect, and you're fine. We have 3 Priest of the Blood, right? Which, yes, he is a little bit high CMC for this deck. He is a 5 mana drop, but he's really good, especially with Mirror Mockery. Every turn you get a 5/5 of flying, and you only have to pay 2 life each upkeep. And if you play this right, the 2 life won't really matter. And then the final creature we got in this deck is Sidisi's Faithful. It's a 1-drop with Exploit. Just return target creature to its owner's hand. And even if you don't exploit it, it's a 0/4 for 1. It's a great defender card. And like I said, we have Ugin in this deck. He's the one planeswalker we're running. And then we also have a mana base up for this deck, which I'm going to run through. Now you can, for budget decks, you can take out the Delta and maybe even the Sunken Hollow and replace them with some just basic land or some dual lands. I wouldn't advise it because they're really good. But, I mean, if you don't have the money, you don't have the money. So, and we are going to make a budget version of this deck. Don't worry. It's coming. We just need to figure out what cards to substitute for some of the really expensive, really good cards in this deck. Okay, so as lands go, we have 1 Blighted Carteract, or Carteract. I believe that's how you pronounce it. Again, I'm sorry if I butcher these pronunciations. You guys know what I mean. And the card should be on the screen if we get the editing software to work properly. So basically, this is a late game, just draw 2 cards kind of thing. It's a good card, well, not really even a good card. It's just in there because you need to draw late game with this deck. We got 8 islands because it is a little bit leaning towards blue. We have 4 deltas, 4 sunken hollows, and 6 swamps. Now, I'm going to run through the sideboard of this deck, then I'm going to run through some really good combos with this deck. I don't know how long this video should really be, but I'm going to run through the sideboard. So here's the sideboard for this deck. The sideboard for this deck is all over the place, to be perfectly honest. We start out here with Clone Legion, which if you don't know what that does, basically you copy every single card that's on the battlefield. Now, I'm going to need a judge's ruling on that, and I will post it in the comments. I don't know if you get all the copies for that. Probably should have checked that before I posted this YouTube video. It's a little late now, but after that, we got 2 of those inside, because it's a good card, but it's a 9 mana drop. It should be up on the screen again. Illusionary Gains, which is, in my opinion, one of my favorite cards in this whole deck. Basically, you enchant a creature. You control that creature. Whenever they bring out a new creature, you control that creature instead. Just all-around great card, because the thing is if you do it right, you just keep control. That's the whole point of this deck, if you haven't caught on yet. It is a blue-black board control. And then we threw in 2 more Husks, because if you're going for more like the Illusionary Gains or Clone Legion, you can pump him up easily. And believe it or not, this little 2/2 for 3 can become a pretty big guy very quick. Then we threw in 2 more negates, so if you're going against another control deck, you're going to want some more control, because you can't out-control control without winning. I mean, it's just basically who runs out of spells first, which I really hope this doesn't happen to you guys, because that is one of the most annoying games you'll ever play. But nevertheless, we threw in 2 negates. We also threw in 2 Ob Nixilis Reignited. Now, he is, again, a little bit of a higher CMC for this deck. He is 5. We're trying to keep it down to around 3 for this deck. But, I mean, he's Ob. He's good. I mean, he's great for sideboard. I mean, he may not be good for main board, but especially if you're running against someone who's running like Sphinx's Tutelage or something. Because then whenever they draw, they may mill you, but they lose 2 life. They can only draw 10 times before they're done. Then we're going to throw in some Send to Sleep, just for more board control. If the deck isn't enough, you tap 2 target creatures, and then Spell Mastery, they don't untap. But decent card. I like it. It's annoying. It works. And we're going to throw in another Sidisi's Faithful, because 1 Sidisi's Faithful is not enough, or 2 Sidisi's Faithful is not enough. I'm sorry. And then we threw in another Ugin, just because. Because, I mean, Ugin is Ugin. and he's really good against late game decks, which this deck, believe it or not, will run late game more often than you think. Like, it's just board control until you can. The win con is just getting enough creatures to kill them, but that doesn't happen until later game, and usually you can get Ugin out before then. So, and then we threw in a final ultimate price if they're running mono-colored creatures as a 2-drop for a destroy. I mean, come on, it's pretty good. I mean, if they're not running mono-colored, you don't need to put it in. It's in the side. So, yeah. I mean, now I'm going to run through some of the strategies. Bear with me, please. It's late, and I really need to get this video out as soon as possible. Got to get through the editor. And again, I apologize for the quality of this video, the quality of the sound. It will get better, guys. My mic, as you can see, is my headphones for gaming, and my camera, you can't see this, is a laptop camera, which is why the imagery is so bad. I'm hoping it gets out in the rendering and the final. Probably won't. So again, I apologize. So now deck strategies for this. This deck, like I said, is based around the card Mere Mockery. And I mean, it's somewhat self-explanatory. I mean, you get Mere Mockery on a card that's like Priest. I mean, every time Priest swings, you get a 5/5 of flying. Now, obviously, there's 3 Priests in the deck, so you need to. It's kind of a sketchy deck play. It's a little risky, is what I'm trying to say, I guess. But the thing is that there are so many ETB effects that you will always have something to attach Mere Mockery to. I have play tested this deck about 20-something times. I have not had a time other than mulling, because I've had some bad hands. That happens with every deck. But I haven't had a time where I haven't had something to put Mere Mockery on that actually worked. I mean, even if it was just Sidisi's Faithful. I mean, because it works. Believe it or not, you can exploit Sidisi's Faithful's copy when it enters battlefield. That way, returning, if memory serves, Sidisi's Faithful, returning another creature to his opponent's hand. Or its owner's hand. Opponent's. Wow. So that right there is just basic board control. I mean, it's a 0/4, so you don't even do anything when you swing. You just get rid of their guy. And just get rid of their guy. And just annoy them until they probably will concede on you. Now, that's actually probably not going to happen. Most people just get upset and maybe flip the table. Once you get out cards like Merciless Executioner and the Husk. The Husk is an amazing card in this deck. Most people are going to just overlook it. But, I mean, it's a great card. I mean, you just sack someone. And even something that... A clone, one of the copies, the Mere Mockery cards. He instantly becomes a 4/4. And you don't even... Like, if you copy Priest... You could make him a 6/6 after he already swung and they declared no blockers. I mean, it's a good card. And then you throw in their Merciless Executioner where you swing with them, and then they have to sack a creature, and you just sack the token. I mean, that's all you have to do, and you meet the criteria for the card. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm basically just running through the deck list here and telling you how you can use every single card. The thing is with Merciless Executioner, you throw that in with Lily Emblem, which I've already mentioned. I know you shouldn't judge a Planeswalker by their final, but Lily's Emblem is amazing, and all you have to do is keep her alive long enough to get to it. And even if you don't, just bring her back. Actually, you can't bring her back in this deck. We probably should change that. But just if you don't, it's not that big a deal. I mean, she's not the win con in the deck, but she helps. So does Ugin. Ugin stands alone in this deck. I mean, he's an 8-drop. He didn't raise our CMC like at all. Our CMC on this deck is like 2 3/4 mana per card. So that's pretty good. Especially because this is actually a late game deck, so you can just pump out stuff late game. I mean, even early game, you have cards like Sidisi's Faithful and Husk. I mean, and the Fairy Miscreant, which Fairy Miscreant is a great card, especially if you have Ob out with Mere Mockery. Because Fairy Miscreant with Mere Mockery and Ob, every time you attack, you would draw 2 cards. I believe 2 cards. Yeah, you would draw 2 cards. Triggering Ob's Emblem, which I know you shouldn't judge a Planeswalker by their ultimate, but this is perfect conditions here. You would draw 2 cards, dealing 4 damage to them. Isn't that amazing? Like, That's every time he swings. That's not even counting the 1 damage he does. And that's a 14-cent card. That's definitely going in the budget deck. And then you throw in cards like Anticipate, which Anticipate just lets you look at the next 3 cards and put one in your hand. I mean, it's a good card. It just lets you plan ahead. When you do Dig, Dig is an amazing card, and again, it is a high CMC, but it's Delve. If you play this deck right, you only pay 2 mana for it. You only pay 2 mana for it. And then you look at the top 7 cards of your library, and you put them back in any order. Well, that's not exactly true. You put 2 in the hand in the bottom. But basically, it's just a greater Anticipate. So, I mean, I don't see why you shouldn't run the deck. We're only running 1 in there because it doesn't raise their high CMC. I mean, and then you just throw in cards like Ruinous Path, and we're debating. You can do this yourself at home if you'd like, about throwing in the guy, Hairbringer of Tides, cards like that, lower CMC cards that will just allow you to basically swarm the board and then keep board control. Again, that is the whole point of this deck. The win con is basically just Golgari Swarm. It's not even Golgari, though. It's more Dimmer. Dimmer didn't have a swarm ability like this, though. I mean, it's like, I don't know. We haven't seen a deck like this in so long. That's what makes it unique. That's what I hope you guys like.